Tony B is with you with the morning get-together between now and 12 o'clock. And with me in the studio right now is Helen Anderson. Good morning.
Morning, Tony.
Good morning. Now, you're, as it says here, a writer based in the northeast of England with an MA in creative writing.
Yeah, that's right. I'm born and bred in Mask by the Sea, over near Redcar, and I'm trying to establish myself as a writer after I took the MA in creative writing at Teesside Uni a couple of years ago.
So has it always been a passion for you to be a writer? Is that something that...
I used to lock myself away and write poetry or really angsty stuff when I was a teenager as well. And then I kind of gave it up for a little while. Just life got in the way. But actually I got back to writing through when I had a period of severe depression a few years ago, and somebody suggested that I express my feelings on paper, and it actually led to people saying, well, maybe you've got something here with your writing, and I took it onwards from there, really.
Yeah. So your latest book then, it says you try to write fiction, but there is a serious side to the book that you've got out at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, and I write fiction and I dabble in poetry. So I've won a few competitions and had a few publications in magazines for fiction and poetry. But really this last year I've really concentrated on writing a totally true story memoir about losing my daughter Georgina to cancer. It's Georgina Anderson. Some of your listeners might have heard her story. She died of cancer in November 2013, and she caught the imagination of a lot of local people because she was a wonderful singer, and she had a hit song with Two-Thirds of a Piece just after she died.
Yeah, so I remember that really, really well. I think she was performing in Middlesbrough in the year.
Yeah, she'd done a few charity gigs and she'd won a few local talent competitions. She was actually just going around busking and... Well, we were still going with her because she was only 14 when she started going busking, and we had to go and sit out of sight but keep an eye on her. And so she was getting well known around Middlesbrough and Saltburn area for her busking. When she was diagnosed in the summer of 2013 with liver cancer. And it was quite a shock because she'd actually been quite well, apart from what we thought was minor indigestion. Yeah. And that had only been going on for a few weeks. So suddenly our world was turned upside down, really. She went from being a fit-ish, healthy schoolgirl who I was running to school with the Gaviscon if she had the indigestion. Yeah. And then the next minute our world was turned on its head and it was all a very serious situation.
So it's just something that just came from what you thought was just, a stomach problem, and then it led onto, being liver cancer.
Yeah, I think they think it was so fast growing that it probably hadn't been going on for very long. I had her to the GP straight away when she had indigestion, and we'd had her to A&E when it was particularly bad one night, and nobody spotted it straight away. And it was only because we pushed for a scan because we were due to go on holiday and we needed to know what to tell the travel insurers, that it was discovered that she actually had a really large aggressive tumour on her liver, and that in fact it had already spread to her lungs by the time it was spotted.
So it really happened that quick?
Yeah, and unfortunately she only got 4 more months after she was diagnosed before she died, which is very, very fast to go. It's a very speedy sort of onset and progress of the disease. Even in oncologist books, they were sort of surprised how fast it progressed. Initially, they did think they could had hope of curing it, so they attacked it with everything they had. They attacked it with chemo, and they were going to try surgery and radiotherapy. But then when it didn't respond to chemotherapy, then it just became a question of bringing her home and trying to look after her at home and keep her as happy as possible.
Yeah. So the book then is that a passage of the time since you discovered it, or is it a bit before that?
Well, the book, it's called Piece by Piece, Remembering Georgina, a Mother's Memoir, and it actually consists of extracts of a diary I started to keep when Georgina was first diagnosed. I think the first entry is the day she had the biopsy, and I think the first line is, "They're taking her away from me piece by piece," and that's hence the title of the book. And then also it's actually then about but how we've gone on to put our lives back together, or to try, and get piece by piece to sort of reassemble ourselves and go forward with some kind of sense of a future. So initially it's about Georgina's illness, but not really focusing on the medical side of her illness, more my emotional response as a mother, and how I wanted to protect her, and how I wanted to save her, and how I wanted to treasure the final few weeks with her when we knew it was the final few weeks. And then after that, it's about basically how we muddled through as a family, and also about the amazing support we've had from Georgina's friends and from the community here in the North East and really all over the world, and the role that that's had in helping us keep going, really.
Yeah, because obviously it's still a big thing, cancer. They say that they're trying to beat cancer, but when you get something like this that just happens in a few months, how can that potentially happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to have a positive attitude, and it kind of annoys me. Sometimes you'll find me shouting at the telly because when people are like saying, we're going to beat cancer and you've got to fight cancer, and it's kind of a bit almost as if, well, if you were one of the people who didn't make it, then maybe you didn't fight hard enough, or you didn't have a positive enough attitude. And that drives me potty, because Georgina couldn't have been more positive, and more determined. And I think the sad reality is that, a lot of people still don't make it. And I think on TV, they rightly sort of want to push the message that it's not necessarily a death sentence. And of course it isn't, and I don't want to frighten people. But really, there is also this side where, and I don't think it's really spoken about so much for people who actually find out they're not going to make it, no matter how much they've fought and how positive they've been. Yeah.
So sadly, it is one of those illnesses that just has that many different forms that how can we sort of know that it's going to be beat completely? So it is a really difficult sort of situation. I can't even go to say I understand where you've been. Well,
hopefully, if you read the book, then you might understand a bit better. Because people do say to me all the time, I don't know how you do it, or if that happened to me, I'd just go to pieces, as in the title.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought I would go to complete pieces. I had Dave go, no, I can't do it, and everything. And if she doesn't survive, I can't survive. And you do think that, but then really it's kind of like, what choice do you have? And a lot of people say to me, I can't imagine, or how do you do it? And hopefully one of the reasons that I wrote the book was that to kind of answer that it's not a question of getting up and being really brave and inspirational every day. And it's a slow, painful journey, and it's a thing about putting one foot in front of the other. And suddenly, if you do that enough days in a row, you find you've got through a week and then a month and so on. So, sort of trying to explain how it is like, what it is like for bereaved parents such as myself and my husband, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things. I mean, people can say that that's life. People have ups and downs in life, but this, to me, is a really tragic thing to take something, somebody so young for, what is a really, really sort of difficult disease.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we know people get ill, but I think when a child gets cancer, I mean, and there were a lot of children on the ward younger than Georgina, babies born with tumours. There's just to my mind, no way of explaining it, and I think it touches people particularly because it's so wrong, because it's the wrong order. Obviously it's sad if an older person gets ill and when an older person passes away, but it's kind of like that's the natural progression. But when it's a child dying before a parent always seems wrong, I think, and that's what strikes people. I think,
and I think this book, hopefully, will help people get over or to understand, how you've managed, and if people are going through that, right now, then hopefully that might help them as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of we've met some other bereaved parents, and parents who've lost children to cancer especially. And one of the things they've said is everybody says they feel so alone and you feel like you're going crazy and you're the only one who's going crazy. And it's actually such a great relief to, do some of the little things. For example, I sometimes sneak in Georgina's bedroom and sniff right at the back of her wardrobe where it still smells of her inner clothes. Right. And I think that's a bit mad that I'm still doing that 2 years on. But then no, I found out everybody does that. All bereaved parents do it, things like that. But things like that, it's that sharing of a common experience, that is helpful. And that was one reason I wrote the book, to help other bereaved parents, really just to say you're not alone, but also to help people, so people who may know somebody who's suffering any kind of bereavement, and to give them some insight into how that affects a person and how really little small kindnesses can help, and how much support from friends and neighbours and community can really make such a big difference. Absolutely.
To lose a child, as you quite rightly say, you expect to lose your parents, and you automatically, think, and manage to deal with that one because you expect it. You don't expect to lose your own child.
No, certainly not in the first world, and nowadays, obviously, in other parts of the country, parts of the world, it's still quite common, and probably for like a few generations ago, it was sadly very common, but now it is really quite an unusual, thankfully, in Britain, quite an unusual club to be a member of, and it can be quite a lonely experience. So I was wanting to make that hopefully less lonely for other bereaved parents. Yeah. But I think it's something that everybody would be interested in because it gives an insight into sort of the strength of the human spirit and how you can overcome adversity and keep going even when you think you can't.
Yeah, because I think it's going to help people. I know yours specifically through cancer, but people who have lost their child through other means as well, not just cancer. Yeah. For whatever reason that they've lost their child. So I'm assuming it's a similar sort of situation, and it will help people in that situation.
I mean,
as well.
I've had lots of messages from other bereaved parents who've read the book, and a couple of people have said, that parts of it's almost as if I've written it myself. So obviously, and they weren't necessarily parents who'd lost children to cancer, but it's just trying to pin down the sense of loss. And obviously with me being a writer, I was sort of in a bit of a privileged position to try and describe that and get that message out there. So hopefully the feedback I'm getting is that I've done that in a sensitive way, but an honest way.
Yeah. So good luck with the book. I mean, you're also trying to look at some fiction and stuff as well. So,
yeah, I'm trying to get an agent for my first novel, and I'm back to writing my second one, which I'm doing under the mentorship of Writers Block North East in Middlesbrough. So I've got a lot of different strands going on, but I really want to get this book, piece by piece, read by as many people as possible. It's going really well at the moment. I just launched it in December. Sales have been beyond our expectations.
So where can people buy it then?
The easiest place to get it is on Amazon. It's $1.99 on Kindle, and it's $7.99 paperback on Amazon. So it's piece by piece, Remembering Georgina, a mother's memoir. If you Google Helen Victoria Anderson. And then locally, it's going to be stocked as of today at the Drake Bookshop in the Enterprise Arcade in Stockton Town Centre. So that's really great. I'm really pleased they've agreed to be an outlet for me locally.
Brilliant. So hopefully we can raise the sales of this particular book and help as many bereaved parents as possible.
Yeah, no, and as I say, I think anybody would be interested in in reading about how the amazing community responds to a difficult situation like this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much indeed. We're going to play the live version of Georgina's Two-Thirds of a Piece.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. Bye. Bye.
I'm wearing your jacket, even though my heart's on its sleeve. We are finally over, and I need to learn how to grieve. All the pillows to one side, can't help but wonder why, or what you have to hide. This is gonna break me into thirds of the piece. My heart, my head, and I'm missing you. And this is gonna break me into thirds of the piece. My heart, my head, and I'm missing you. Sick of my room smelling of you, sick of singing old tunes. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And all the words I wrote, and how I wish you'd choke on them. Sick of being reminded